So, another Tuesday, right? Just a regular Tuesday. The kind where you wake up and the biggest decision on your plate is whether to make coffee at home or hit the drive-thru. I'm definitely a coffee at home guy though. Less fuss, more control over the brew. My little slice of suburban heaven, you know? Woke up to the sun streaming through the blinds, hitting that perfect spot on the kitchen counter where I usually set up my laptop for the morning. It was shaping up to be one of those gloriously unremarkable days. I live in one of those planned communities, the kind with all the bells and whistles, a sparkling community pool that nobody really uses enough, a cute little park for the kids that's always suspiciously empty, sidewalks that actually connect to things, and of course, an HOA. Now, before you start groaning and picturing angry letters about rogue garden gnomes, ours usually isn't too bad. They're mostly there to keep the common areas looking sharp, handle the snow plowing in winter, make sure everyone's recycling bins are out on the right day. You know, the practical stuff. Mostly, they just send out the occasional newsletter reminding people to trim their hedges or not leave their trash cans out for 3 days after pickup. Pretty standard, mostly benign stuff that you barely even notice. I'm a live and let live kind of guy, mostly. As long as my yard isn't looking like a jungle and my house paint isn't peeling off in sheets, I figure we're all good. I'm pretty meticulous about my own place, actually. A tidy lawn, a freshly washed car, it's just part of being a homeowner in my book. Gives you a sense of pride, you know? This particular morning, I was feeling pretty good about my place. I'd spent the weekend finally cleaning out the garage, which had been a project looming over me for months. And I even managed to hang that new bird feeder my mom got me for my birthday. Little things, you know? They make a house feel more like a home, less like just a structure you pay a mortgage on. Stepped out onto the porch, mug of coffee in hand, just taking a moment to breathe in the crisp morning air. The neighborhood was slowly waking up. My next-door neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, was already out there, meticulously watering his prize-winning hydrangeas. We exchanged a casual wave, a silent acknowledgement of another day dawning. Typical Tuesday morning pleasantries, the kind that makes you think, yeah, this is all right. This is the life I signed up for. I had a pretty chill day ahead, according to my calendar. Work from home schedule, which is both a blessing and a curse. Blessing because, well, no soul-crushing commute and I can wear sweatpants. Curse because sometimes the lines between work and home get a little blurry, and you find yourself answering emails at 9 p.m. still in those same sweatpants. But today, I had a clear plan. Knock out the morning meetings, grab a quick sandwich for lunch from the deli down the street, nothing too ambitious. Maybe finally tackle that pile of laundry that's been silently judging me from the corner of the bedroom. Riveting stuff, I know. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The mundane, the predictable, it's the quiet backdrop that allows everything else to happen. It's the comfort zone. I walked back inside, refilled my coffee, adding just a splash more creamer than usual, and settled into my makeshift home office, which is really just my dining room table with a monitor precariously balanced on some old college textbooks. Logged in, checked emails, mentally prepped for the usual morning stand-up. Everything felt normal, peaceful. The low, steady hum of the refrigerator, the distant chirping of birds outside my window, the subtle, comforting scent of my brewing coffee filling the air. It was the calm before the storm, though. I didn't know it then. I was just a guy, living his quiet, suburban life, minding his own business, enjoying the simple, uncomplicated rhythm of a Tuesday morning. I was entirely unaware that someone, somewhere, was already sharpening their claws, ready to disrupt my perfectly ordinary, perfectly uneventful day. I mean, who in their right mind would even think to pick a fight on such a glorious, unremarkably average day? It just didn't compute with the peaceful vibe radiating from my freshly organized garage and perfectly mowed lawn. I was truly in my element, just living life. The sun was beating down, but it was that good kind of heat, you know? The kind that makes you sweat a little, but also makes you feel like you're actually accomplishing something. I had my trusty shovel in hand, humming some old rock tune under my breath, finally getting around to that little xeriscape project I'd been planning for months. My wife had been nudging me, bless her heart, saying the front yard needed a pop of something. And after weeks of researching drought-resistant succulents and calculating cubic yards of gravel, today was the day. I'd just finished laying down the weed barrier, feeling pretty darn proud of myself, honestly. The air smelled like fresh earth and a faint whiff of a neighbor's barbecue, and I remember thinking, man, this is the life. Weekend warrior mode activated. I was about to unroll the first section of landscape fabric when I heard it. Not a car driving by, not a kid yelling, but this huff, like someone had just run a marathon, but was also deeply displeased about it. My first thought was maybe one of the neighborhood dogs had gotten out, or perhaps a delivery driver was having a bad day. I straightened up, wiping a bead of sweat from my forehead with the back of my glove, and that's when I saw her. Standing at the edge of my driveway, hands planted firmly on her hips, was the Karen. You know the type. Every HOA has one. The self-appointed mayor of misery, the grand inquisitor of grass links, the self-professed guardian of community standards. Our particular model was a woman named Brenda, mid-50s, hair a shade of blonde that definitely didn't grow naturally from anyone's scalp, cinched waist floral top, capri pants, and those little white sneakers that look like they've never actually seen a running track. Her face was already a deep shade of crimson, lips pursed so tight they practically disappeared, and her eyes, oh man, her eyes were laser focused on me, like I'd just personally offended every single blade of grass in her pristine lawn. My internal monologue went something like, oh, for crying out loud, what now? Because with Brenda, it was always something. Last month, it was my recycling bin being prematurely placed at the curb, a full hour before collection time, mind you. The month before that, my son's basketball hoop was apparently a visual blight on the streetscape, even though it was tucked away in the corner of the driveway. I managed a polite, if slightly strange smile. "Morning, Brenda," I offered, trying to keep my tone neutral, hoping to preempt whatever fresh hell she was about to unleash. It was a futile effort. She didn't even acknowledge my greeting, just took a deep, theatrical breath and launched into it, full Karen throttle. Her voice, usually just a bit too loud for casual conversation, was now cranked up to a full-on accusatory bellow, completely disregarding the fact that we were in a quiet residential neighborhood and it was barely 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. "I knew it," she declared, practically spitting the words out, her head bobbing with self-righteous indignation. "I knew you were up to something. I saw that delivery truck yesterday. I saw you bringing those things in, and I thought, surely not. Not him, not after everything. But here you are, desecrating our beautiful neighborhood." Desecrating? I looked down at my carefully planned, soon-to-be beautiful, low-maintenance garden bed. I looked at the bag of mulch. I looked at the small pile of river rocks. I looked back at her, utterly baffled. "Brenda," I started, trying to inject a dose of calm into the situation, "I'm just installing a new garden feature. It's a xeriscape. It's going to save water, and it's well within." She cut me off, a shrill laugh escaping her lips. "Well within," she shrieked, making me wince. "Don't you dare try to pull that with me. I have read the covenants, section by section, paragraph by paragraph. I know what is permitted and what is an eyesore, and that pile of rubble is a direct violation of Article 7, subsection C, maintenance of an aesthetically pleasing and uniform front yard appearance." Rubble? My river rocks were individually selected for their smooth texture and varying shades of gray. I almost laughed out loud at the absurdity, but I knew that would only escalate things further. This was Brenda. Logic was merely a suggestion, and usually an unwelcome one when she had a narrative in her head. A knot of pure annoyance started to twist in my stomach. Seriously? This woman spent her mornings looking for reasons to be mad? Was her coffee machine broken? Did her cat refuse to be petted? Whatever it was, I was clearly the target today. I could feel my polite smile faltering, replaced by something a little more grim. "Brenda, it's not rubble, it's decorative stone. For a garden bed, on my property. It's not even finished yet." I tried to reason, but she was already shaking her head, her blonde hair bobbing furiously.
"Oh, it's finished, all right," she scoffed. "Finished being a glaring example of neglect and an affront to every homeowner who takes pride in our community. I've already taken pictures, I've documented this monstrosity, and let me tell you, the HOA board is going to hear all about this. You can be absolutely certain of that. You'll be lucky if they don't hit you with a retroactive fine for every single day this mess has been visible." The mention of fines, of course, was always her favorite threat.
It was like she got a perverse thrill from it. My jaw tightened. I felt that familiar surge of indignation, the one that makes your ears feel hot and your blood pressure start to climb. This wasn't just about a garden anymore. This was about principle. This was about my right to do something reasonable on my own property without facing an immediate, unwarranted inquisition from the neighborhood busybody. My morning of peaceful gardening had officially been hijacked, and the annoyance was rapidly curdling into something much colder, a resolve that this time she wasn't going to win. So there I was, still trying to wrap my head around the absurdity of Karen's initial complaint. My new patio set. Seriously? It was a perfectly respectable, charcoal gray, all-weather wicker ensemble. Nothing ostentatious, nothing outlandish, just a nice spot to enjoy my morning coffee. But according to her, it was an eyesore and violated the aesthetic harmony of the community. I swear, the woman had a magnifying glass glued to her face, perpetually searching for something, anything, to complain about. I'd initially tried to be reasonable. I even walked over to her house, knock on the door, figuring maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding. I thought, surely she'll see reason when I politely explain. How naive I was. She opened the door, not even a crack, but just enough to show her face, framed by those perfectly coiffed iron gray curls she always sported. Her eyes narrowed the moment she saw me. It was like I was a cockroach that had just scurried across her pristine floor. "Yes," she practically spat, her voice tight, already radiating that familiar air of disdain. "Hi, Brenda," I started, trying to keep my tone light. "I just got your note about the patio furniture. I'm a little confused. It's pretty standard outdoor furniture. Bought it right off the floor at—" She cut me off, a sharp, dismissive wave of her hand. "Oh, I know exactly what it is, Mark, and it's quite simply unacceptable. It clashes with the natural stone facade of your home, and frankly, it looks cheap." "Cheap? This set cost me a pretty penny." I took a deep breath, trying to keep the exasperation from creeping into my voice. "Brenda, with all due respect, the HOA guidelines stipulate outdoor furniture should be tasteful and complementary to the home's exterior. I've reviewed the guidelines thoroughly, and I truly believe my set fits that description. It's not bright pink, it's not made of reclaimed tires, it's just gray." She let out a scoff, a sound so laden with condescension it felt like a physical blow. "Tasteful is subjective, Mark, and my taste, as a long-standing member of this community and a diligent HOA board member, dictates that your choice is lacking. It detracts from the property values we all work so hard to maintain." That was it. The moment I realized reasoning with her was like trying to argue with a brick wall. A brick wall that believed its opinions were the undisputed law of the land. My frustration began to simmer. I could feel my jaw tighten, the muscles in my neck tensing. "Look, Brenda," I said, my voice losing its easygoing quality, "I'm not going to replace perfectly good furniture that meets the HOA's written guidelines just because you personally don't like the color gray. That's unreasonable." Her lips thinned into a hard line. "Unreasonable? What's unreasonable is your blatant disregard for community standards. I've already submitted a formal complaint to the Architectural Review Committee. You'll be hearing from them." With that, she slammed the door, leaving me standing on her porch, staring at the polished wood, my mind reeling. A formal complaint? Over patio furniture? The audacity was truly breathtaking. I walked back to my house, shaking my head, a mix of disbelief and growing anger churning inside me. This wasn't just about furniture anymore. This was about control, about her exerting her perceived authority over anything and everything she could. True to her word, a few days later, an official-looking envelope landed in my mailbox. HOA letterhead, bold type, all the trimmings. It was a formal notice of violation, citing Section 4.7.2.b, Exterior Decor and Aesthetics, and demanding that I remove or replace the offending patio set within 14 days or face a fine of $100 per day. $100 a day for a charcoal gray patio set? I reread the letter 3 times, each reading fueling a fresh wave of indignation. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from sheer, unadulterated rage. This was no longer a minor spat. This was an all-out assault on my property rights, orchestrated by a woman who clearly had too much time on her hands and an insatiable need to dictate everyone else's lives. I immediately dove into the HOA's online portal, pulling up every single document related to exterior decor. I cross-referenced the guidelines, compared them to my furniture, even took pictures from every conceivable angle to prove its innocuousness. The guidelines were vague, as most HOA rules tend to be, using words like harmonious and appropriate. My gray furniture, by any objective standard, fit those descriptions. Karen's interpretation was the only thing standing in the way. I drafted a polite but firm email to the HOA management, attaching my photos and a detailed explanation, citing the specific guidelines and arguing that my furniture clearly complied. I felt a small surge of defiance. I wasn't going to let her push me around. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no. About a week after I sent my email, I was out in my yard watering some plants when I heard that piercing voice from across the street. "Mark!" she shrieked, making me jump. I turned to see her marching across her lawn, heading straight for me, looking like a battle-axe warrior with her hands firmly planted on her hips. Her face was flushed, her eyes blazing. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Trying to circumvent the rules, sending those ridiculous emails to the board," she accused, stopping just short of my property line, practically vibrating with indignation. I straightened up, turning off the hose. The sunlight seemed to catch the harsh angles of her face, deepening the shadows around her eyes, making her look even more severe. "Brenda, I'm simply responding to a baseless complaint with facts and the actual guidelines," I replied, my voice calm but with an edge of steel I hadn't realized I possessed. "My furniture complies. You just don't like it." "It does not comply. It's an abomination. And now you're trying to turn the board against me? I've served this community for 15 years. I know the rules better than anyone," she yelled, her voice rising in volume, echoing slightly in the quiet afternoon. A couple of neighbors' curtains twitched. Great, a public spectacle, just what I needed. With all due respect, Brenda, knowing the rules doesn't mean you get to make them up as you go along or enforce your personal preferences as if they're gospel, I shot back, my patience wearing thin, a red haze starting to cloud my vision. This woman was infuriating. I could feel my own blood pressure rising. She took a step forward, practically vibrating with fury. "Don't you dare speak to me that way. I'm warning you, Mark. If that unsightly monstrosity isn't gone by the deadline, I will personally ensure the fines are enforced. And if you refuse to pay, I'll involve the police. Disturbing the peace? Obstructing community efforts? I'll find something." Involve the police? Over patio furniture? I stared at her, genuinely speechless for a moment. Then a slow, incredulous laugh escaped my lips. It wasn't a jovial laugh. It was a short, sharp bark of pure disbelief, mixed with a nascent, dangerous amusement. The absurdity was just too much. "You're going to call the police because you don't like my patio set, Brenda?" I asked, my voice dangerously low, a smirk forming despite myself. "Really? You're going to waste taxpayer money and police resources over a gray wicker table and chairs?" Her face turned a mottled purple.
Don't you dare mock me. I am a respected member of this community, and I will not tolerate defiance of our rules. You'll see, Mark. You'll see. The police will sort you out. She wheeled around dramatically, stomping back across her lawn, her every step radiating pure, unadulterated fury. I just stood there, watching her go, a strange mix of incredulity and a building sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. So, she wanted to play hardball. She wanted to drag the cops into this ridiculous, petty HOA dispute? Fine, be my guest, Brenda. Because for some reason, despite the frustration and the rising anger, a little voice in the back of my head was telling me this was exactly where she'd mess up. Big time.
So there I was, standing in my front yard, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. On one side, Karen, arms crossed, a smirk plastered across her face like she'd just won a lifetime supply of HOA-approved beige paint. On the other, two of Riverside's finest, Officers Miller and Reynolds, looking like they were ready to clock out and just go home, which, honestly, I couldn't blame them for. This whole saga, triggered by Karen's insistence that my perfectly legal 6-foot fence was at least 6 feet 1 inch and therefore a grotesque violation of community aesthetics, had culminated in this very public showdown. I'd spent hours triple-checking the HOA rules, even pulled out my own tape measure, but the knot of anxiety in my stomach was stubborn. You just never know with Karens, right? They have a way of warping reality. Officer Miller, the older, more weary of the two, took the lead. He pulled out a regulation metal tape measure, the kind that screams official business, and a printed copy of the HOA bylaws that Karen had, no doubt, provided in triplicate. He walked slowly along the fence line, carefully extending the tape, his movements deliberate. Karen was practically buzzing with anticipation next to him, her head bobbing, lips moving silently like she was narrating her glorious triumph in real time. I could practically hear her internal monologue. Yes, officer, that's the illegal height, just as I suspected. He always thinks he's above the rules. I just stood there, trying to project an aura of calm confidence, while internally I was sweating through my shirt. This was it, the moment of truth. Finally, Officer Miller straightened up, retracting the tape with a quiet snap. He turned, first to Karen, then to me, a neutral, almost weary expression on his face. My breath caught in my throat. "Ma'am," he began, his voice calm, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. "According to our measurements and cross-referenced with the HOA guidelines you provided here, Mr. Smith's fence is precisely 6 feet high. The regulations state that fences up to 6 feet are permissible." The silence that followed was deafening. It was the kind of silence that feels like a physical thing, pressing down on everything. Karen's face? Oh man, it was a slow-motion car crash of emotions. First, a flicker of disbelief, then her jaw slackened, followed by a violent flush that started at her neck and spread upwards, turning her face a vivid, angry shade of crimson. Her eyes, already narrowed with preemptive triumph, now bulged slightly. "What? No, that's impossible!" she shrieked, the words tearing out of her throat with a raw, almost guttural sound. Her voice, usually that irritating, reedy tone, had now ratcheted up several octaves. "You must have measured it wrong. It's at least 6 feet 1 inch. I know it is. I measured it myself, twice, with my own personal, highly accurate German-engineered measuring device." Officer Miller let out a low, almost imperceptible sigh, a testament to years of dealing with, well, this. "Ma'am, we used a calibrated, police-issued measuring device. It's 6 feet. And, for the record," he added, his gaze firm, "even if there were a minor discrepancy, the guidelines typically allow for a reasonable variance for construction tolerances." That was the spark that ignited the full-blown bonfire. "Reasonable variance?" she yelled, her voice cracking now, reaching truly alarming decibels. Her hands flew up, gesticulating wildly, fingers splayed as if trying to physically tear the words from the air. There is no variance for him. He's always pushing the boundaries, always trying to get away with something. He probably bribed you. You're clearly incompetent. This is a conspiracy. She was pointing a trembling, accusatory finger at me, then jabbing it towards Officer Miller's chest, then sweeping it dramatically across my fence as if it were a monument to criminal activity. I swear I saw the curtains twitch in Mrs. Henderson's house across the street. And sure enough, old Mr. Peterson's miniature poodle, usually a docile fluffball, started yapping hysterically from his porch, undoubtedly set off by Karen's escalating volume. I just stood there, a little smirk now definitely playing on my lips, trying to pretend I wasn't absolutely, utterly reveling in this public spectacle. But inside, I was practically doing the Macarena. It was like watching a cartoon villain finally get flattened by an anvil, repeatedly. The pure, unadulterated schadenfreude was a powerful elixir. The secondhand embarrassment, though, was also very real. Like, how does a grown woman, someone who supposedly manages an entire HOA, lose her composure this spectacularly over a completely compliant fence? It was both hilarious and deeply pathetic. Officer Reynolds, who had until now been observing with the stoic patience of a seasoned professional, stepped forward, his voice a steady counterpoint to Karen's rising hysteria. "Ma'am, you called us here for a property dispute. We have thoroughly investigated the complaint. Mr. Smith is in full compliance with the HOA rules you yourself presented. There is absolutely nothing further for us to do here, nor is there any evidence of a conspiracy." Nothing further? She was practically spitting now, her face contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Her arms flailed even wider, as if trying to encompass the sheer injustice of it all. "He's getting away with it! This is an outrage! I pay my HOA dues!" "I work tirelessly for this community. I demand something be done about this blatant disregard for our rules." She started stomping her foot, literally stomping it into the manicured grass of my lawn. For a split second, I genuinely thought she was going to drop to her knees and have a full-on toddler tantrum right there. Officer Miller, his previous weary patience finally dissolving, took a more authoritative stance. His voice dropped slightly, gaining a new edge of sternness. "Ma'am, let me be very clear. If you continue to harass your neighbor over a non-issue, or if you persist in making frivolous calls to emergency services based on unsubstantiated claims, we will have no option but to issue you a formal warning for misuse of police resources. Is that understood?" That finally seemed to pierce through the thick cloud of entitlement surrounding her. The sheer volume of her voice dropped immediately, though the furious redness of her face remained. She just stood there, panting slightly, glaring daggers at me as if I had personally engineered this entire cosmic injustice. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no coherent words came out. She looked like a malfunctioning robot trying to process an impossible command. She looked like she wanted to physically dismantle my fence, brick by brick, with her bare hands. Then, without another word, without even a glance at the officers, she whirled around, practically ripping her phone out of her ear, and marched back towards her house. Her stride was stiff, her shoulders hunched, practically up to her ears. The silence that followed her departure was more than glorious. It was a symphony of vindication. The neighbors slowly, almost imperceptibly, retreated from their windows. Old Mr. Peterson's poodle let out one last half-hearted yap before settling down. Officer Miller just shook his head, a wry, almost amused smile finally breaking through his professional demeanor. "Some days, Mr. Smith," he said, giving me a knowing look, "I seriously question my life choices." I let out a shaky laugh, finally feeling the last vestiges of tension drain out of my shoulders. "Tell me about it, officer. Trust me, I do too. But thank you, truly. You guys were absolutely excellent." And just like that, the great fence crisis of 2024 was over.
But oh man, the memory of her face, that contorted, beet red mask of pure, unadulterated Karen rage, that's gonna sustain me through many a future HOA meeting, many a forced neighborly smile. Total Karen meltdown, 10/10. Would recommend calling the cops on her again. Kidding, mostly. But seriously, best 10 minutes of free entertainment I've had all year.
So, there we were, the two officers, Karen, and me, standing on my perfectly manicured lawn. Karen was practically vibrating with self-righteousness, holding her phone aloft like it contained incriminating evidence from a spy thriller. I just stood there, trying to keep my face neutral, but inside I was already anticipating the sweet taste of vindication. I knew my lawn was fine, but you never truly relax until the Karen is dealt with. Officer Miller finally turned to her, his voice calm, professional. "Ma'am, we've reviewed your complaint, observed Mr. Peterson's property, and cross-referenced with the HOA bylaws you've provided." He paused, and Karen actually puffed out her chest a little, like she was expecting applause. "And," he continued, looking her directly in the eye, "we've found no violation here. Mr. Peterson's lawn is well-maintained, within all stated requirements, and appears to be in full compliance." Boom! The words hit Karen like a truck. Her jaw dropped. "What? That's impossible!" she shrieked, her voice going up an octave. "Look at it! It's practically a jungle. He's letting the whole neighborhood go to seed. I have photos." She started waving her phone frantically, those blurry, zoomed-in shots that magically make everything look worse. Officer Miller simply held up a hand, cutting her off. "Ma'am, we've seen your photos, and we've observed the actual lawn. There's a significant discrepancy. Our assessment, based on the bylaws you provided, is that there is no violation. No fine will be issued, and no further action from our end on this specific complaint." Boom! The silence that followed was pure gold. Karen stood there utterly dumbfounded, cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally a furious glare aimed directly at me. I just gave her the slightest, most polite smile I could manage. Not smug, just satisfied. "This is an outrage," she sputtered, her voice thick with indignation. "I'm going to take this up with the HOA board. They'll hear about this, Mr. Peterson. And you," she jabbed a finger at the officers, "you're clearly not doing your jobs. This is ridiculous." Officer Davis, who'd been observing quietly, stepped in. "Ma'am, we've addressed your concern. Our determination stands. If you have an issue with the HOA board's interpretation of their own rules, that's an internal matter for them. We suggest you respect your neighbor's property." His tone was firm, leaving absolutely no room for argument. That did it. Karen made a guttural sound, somewhere between a choke and a growl, spun on her heel, and stomped back to her car, muttering about unprofessionalism and disrespect. She peeled out of my driveway, kicking up gravel, a true dramatic exit. Officer Miller actually cracked a small, weary smile. "All right, Mr. Peterson," he said, "looks like you're good to go. Sorry for the disturbance." "No worries, officer," I replied, a huge wave of relief washing over me. "Thanks for clarifying things. Really appreciate you guys coming out." As they walked back to their patrol car, I just stood there, watching her dust settle. Karen had tried. She'd tried to weaponize the HOA, tried to use the police as her personal army, all because she had some warped idea about my perfectly fine lawn. And she'd failed spectacularly. It wasn't just about avoiding a fine. It was about winning against that absurd sense of entitlement. Today, common sense and a couple of good officers had firmly won. Justice served, indeed. So the cops finally left, their patrol car a disappearing speck down the street, and I just stood there on my porch, watching it go. It was like the air itself had been let out of a giant invisible balloon that had been slowly inflating in my chest for the past hour. The tension, the sheer absurdity of the whole thing, it just deflated out of me in one long, weary exhale. And then there was Karen. She was still standing rigidly by her perfectly manicured rose bushes, her jaw hanging a little. The look on her face wasn't the usual laser-focused anger anymore. It was pure, unadulterated disbelief. Like the universe had just personally intervened and slapped her with a cold, wet fish for daring to believe her own inflated sense of importance. I swear, for a crazy second, I thought she was actually going to open her mouth and argue with the retreating police cruiser, demand they come back, demand they reevaluate, demand something. But no, she just stood there, frozen in place, a statue of indignant bewilderment. I didn't say a word, didn't need to, just gave her a slow, deliberate nod, the kind that says, clear as day, yeah, you just wasted everyone's valuable time, including your own, made yourself look utterly ridiculous on camera because, let's be real, a lot of people probably saw this, and now you're left with nothing but egg on your perfectly made-up face. Then, with a satisfied, almost languid pace, I turned around and walked back inside my house, closing the door as gently as humanly possible. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of hearing a triumphant slam, even though every fiber of my being wanted to punctuate the moment with a resounding thud. Subtlety, my friends, is its own form of revenge. Once I was safely inside, the first thing I did was just lean against the door. A long, deep breath, followed by another. My chest felt tight, not from anger anymore, but from this bizarre, almost intoxicating mix of residual adrenaline and profound weariness. And seriously, the weariness. Because seriously, this entire ordeal, calling the actual police because my mailbox was apparently a millimeter too far to the left of some imaginary line, or my grass was a shade too green according to her internal HOA rulebook, or whatever concoction of nitpicking nonsense she dreamed up this time, it was just exhausting. The mental gymnastics required to escalate something so utterly trivial into a police matter, the sheer unbridled entitlement, the audacious gall to involve law enforcement over a perceived slight against her personal aesthetic preference for the neighborhood, it truly boggled the mind. My brain felt like it had run a marathon while simultaneously trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. I mean, the cops themselves were fantastic, don't get me wrong. Professional, clearly used to dealing with HOA-induced nonsense and the unique brand of suburban drama that often comes with it. But still, to have to stand there on my own property explaining to two grown men in uniform why some middle-aged woman felt my perfectly legal and compliant property was somehow a threat to the fabric of suburban society, it was surreal. Part of me wanted to just burst out laughing hysterically right there on the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Another part just wanted to curl up in a fetal position and sleep for a solid week just to recover from the sheer emotional and mental drain of having to engage with that level of absurdity. But oh, that moment. The best part? The sheer, quiet, understated vindication. When the officer, bless his soul, actually pulled out his measuring tape, a genuine, honest-to-goodness measuring tape, and meticulously checked whatever arbitrary dimension Karen had complained about. And then, the delivery. He looked Karen dead in the eye, without an ounce of malice, just pure, weary professionalism, and stated, "Ma'am, everything here is well within compliance. There's no violation to report." You could practically hear the air hiss out of her like a slowly deflating tire. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated cinematic satisfaction, a real mic drop moment, except it was delivered with the polite yet firm authority of local law enforcement. No yelling, no drama from them, just cold, hard facts. And it just shattered her entire delusional little world. What happened after that, you ask? Well, thankfully, not much. I haven't heard a single peep from the HOA since that glorious afternoon. I suppose the officer's report, if they even bothered to write one for something so incredibly frivolous, probably included a little side note about nuisance calls or resident reporting non-existent violations. And Karen? Oh, she still gives me the occasional withering stink eye when I'm out getting my mail or mowing the lawn. But it's different now. There's less fire behind it, less of that entitled spark, and more quiet resentment. Like a defanged cat, still hissing instinctively, but knowing deep down that it can't actually bite anymore. The power has been stripped, and all that's left is a grumbling, impotent fury. And you know what? That's more than enough for me. This entire experience was just another glaring reminder of the special kind of crazy that exists out there in the world, especially when you mix a little perceived power, like an HOA board position, with a whole lot of unchecked free time and a touch of delusion. It's never really about the rules, is it? It's about control. It's about trying to impose their own narrow, often absurd idea of perfection on everyone else around them. But sometimes, just sometimes, even the most formidable Karen runs headfirst into a solid brick wall of common sense, official compliance, and police officers who have better things to do than mediate shrubbery disputes. And that, my friends, is a truly beautiful thing to witness. It was a pain, a massive headache, and a definite drain on my afternoon. But man, oh man, was it satisfying to watch her get shut down, politely but firmly. Just absolutely priceless. And it reminds you that sometimes all you need is a little patience and the truth will out, even if you need a cop with a measuring tape to prove it.